Hi, my name is Katie, and I'm going to go ahead and start the mini lesson. So if you're watching this video, you already have all of the links that you should need. So what I'm going to do is just talk about why learner pathways are essential. So hopefully this video is only about 10 minutes long um, because I know you guys have a whole lot to do, and I've given you guys just a ton of options to go through. And so what I want to do is just kind of do like a mini lesson talking about learner pathways, kind of what they are, give you guys an example of one, and then some ideas just to kind of get started on personalized learning. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about myself, and I promise you there is a point. So if it seems like I'm rambling on about myself a lot, I promise you that's not what I am kind of doing that, but there is a purpose to it. So this picture right here is my daughter. She just turned 3. This is actually a picture we took last weekend. We went to the park here in Kentucky where they have like these gigantic wooden giants. It was really cool. She had a really good time, as you can tell. She does require me to drink a whole lot of coffee. That's kind of a fun fact about me, is that I am a coffee person. I really enjoy coffee. I have it every morning. Sometimes I have it in the afternoon if I feel like I need a little afternoon pick-me-up. But a lot of the reason I drink coffee is because I have to keep up with her. She has endless amounts of energy. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about my background and how I became a teacher. So I actually attended a university called Coastal Carolina, which is located in Conway, South Carolina, which is very close to Myrtle Beach. So I lived about 10 minutes from the beach at the time. And I graduated in 2012 with my undergraduate degree in marine science. So I studied the ocean. I actually did quite a few research projects, and it was super fun. I really enjoyed the degree. I actually, after graduating, got to interview at SeaWorld to become a marine mammal trainer. I went through the majority of the process and was offered the position, which I think is super kind of rare. It's hard to get that job, and it requires a whole lot of work, and you have to be very athletic. I was offered the position. However, at the time, again, this was back in 2013, I believe, that is when the Blackfish documentary came out. So that documentary, if you have not seen it, talks a lot about the inhumane treatment of the orcas at SeaWorld. Now, granted, a lot of that treatment came like back in I think it was the 80s when that was happening, but it was still kind of a big deal to me because I am a big animal lover, and I didn't want my name to be associated with somebody who may or may not be mistreating animals. So I'm not saying that they do. I don't know enough about what goes on in the background to really be able to give you any proof of one or the other. But I just at the time was not sure I wanted to become associated. So I ended up turning the job down. Heartbreakingly so. So after that, I moved back to my hometown of Louisville, Kentucky, which is actually where I currently live as well. I grew up here, my family lives here, and I was kind of lost. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with my life. I was spending all this money on my apartment and just kind of assumed maybe the best option for me was to kind of go home and kind of rethink my plans. So I moved home and picked up a couple of jobs. And I was actually working at the Louisville Zoo. I worked with the polar bears, the brown bears, the sea lions, and then they had one harbor seal as well, which went really well with my background in marine science. So it still kind of worked out. It was nice to still have a little piece of that, even here in my hometown. So I worked there. Unfortunately, the pay wasn't wonderful. So I also worked a second job where I was a bartender. So a lot of times I would work at the zoo in the morning, go home, take a shower because I tended to smell like fish, and then I would go and work my second job as a bartender. So it was a very busy time for me. And again, I was still kind of lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I didn't really want to be a bartender. I had done it for several years, so I had the experience needed, and it made okay money. But I just wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I also knew that I couldn't make enough money working at the zoo full time. They just don't make enough money to support my livelihood. So I just knew that wasn't an option, even though I wanted it to be. So I kind of sat here and was like, what am I going to do? I'm lost. I don't know. I want to do science. I have passions for animals, but I didn't know what was next. So I started doing some research, and I had a friend who I went to high school with who was actually teaching here in Louisville at a parochial school. And she was telling me about her job and about how she works with kids, and she just loves her students and loves to teach them science. She taught middle grade science. So I actually looked into a program at Georgetown College where I had my, since I had my undergraduate in a science degree, they were offering a program where I could get my master's in education and get my teaching certification as well. So I went into that program and immediately started teaching full-time in Jefferson County Public Schools, which is still where I work. I started teaching at Cameron Middle School, which is kind of what that paw print picture is. And last year, I started diving into personalized learning. So I went through the Georgetown College program, got my master's, and then kind of started to look into other ways to teach because the traditional method is just not for me. So super exciting. That was my journey. It was a lot of fun, I think, getting here, even during those hard times of like, what am I going to do with my life? And I think it's something a lot of our students, I can say for sure a lot of my students are going through right now is like, what am I going to do with my life? I work with 8th graders this year, and we are talking to them about those. Like, what do you want to do when you graduate? Do you want to go to college? Do you want to do trade school? There's a bunch of different options. And so sometimes sharing my story with them of how I didn't figure out what I wanted to do until I was in my mid-20s can be really helpful. So the reason I'm explaining this to you, because again, I told you it would seem a little weird that I'm kind of rambling. The reason I'm sharing this information with you is because this was my pathway. So we're here to talk about learner pathways. So on a big picture scale, I just gave you guys my pathway to where I'm at now, right? Every teacher, every educator got to where they are in a different way. It would be extremely rare to find two people that took the exact same route at the exact same time It doesn't happen. You know, we all had our own unique way of getting here. So I think how this translates to kids is if us as adults have to have our own different ways of getting to that same goal, so do our kids. So it's not fair to always sit there, especially with some of our kids who really learn differently, to say, well, you have to do it this way. And that's where personalized learning comes in, is that they're allowed to personalize it to what they need. They are given some voice and choice, which is a big word that you will hear in personalized learning is voice and choice. And they're all going to get to the final result. They're just going to get there differently. And that, again, that's the whole premise, I think, at least behind how I do it. I'm sure there are teachers who do it differently than me, but the idea is they're going to all take a different way to get there because when they become adults, no one takes the same path. It's very rare that someone takes the same path. So that's why I shared that with you, because I want you guys to take my pathway and kind of compare it to yours. How did you become a teacher? I know some of my colleagues knew they wanted to be a teacher from the get-go, so they went to college, got their degree and like their teaching certification in their degree and started teaching. But then there were some of us who had other ideas at the time, right? So you can kind of compare yours to mine and see how we got to the same point. We're both educators. We're all educators, but we got there different ways. So super exciting. I like this little picture of the cat. It just kind of makes me happy. But yeah, so it's the idea of like, yay, I found out what I wanted to do. I'm so excited. So what I'm going to do now is do like a quick little kind of the official idea of what a learner pathway is. And then give you guys some examples. And then I'm going to let you guys go and kind of explore. So I have given you guys so much information, as much as I could find, as much as I could get for you all in this short amount of time. But I wanted to really get you guys as much as I could. And I want to give you guys as much time to explore that on your own as possible. That's how I do things with my students. I give them a ton of information and say, go and explore it. A little differently this year with us being in virtual learning, but I'm trying to basically model this presentation off of how I would run a classroom virtually, I guess. So I got this definition from a book. I put it in my own words, but I am going to show you guys the book, and I'll put a link to this so you guys can see the actual book in the presentation. It's called Personalized Learning in the Middle Grades. So I do teach middle school. I teach grades 6th, 7th, and 8th, or I can teach 6th, 7th, and 8th. So last year I was teaching 6th grade science. This year they did move me to 8th grade math because I am certified to teach both. So in the book, they talk about learner pathways and kind of two different ways to look at them. So you can look at them at the macro level and at the micro level. The macro level, as I kind of said here on this slide, is them charting their own path through education. They're using their life experience, their interest, and then what they need. And then on the micro level, it's really giving them in like those small tasks and the projects and assignments, giving them some voice and choice. So we talked about the macro, going back to the macro, it's kind of the big picture, really giving them the time to bring their own person into their learning. So validating life experiences, like they all have their own lives outside of school, they all have their own experiences, and they are the masters of that. So letting them bring that into the classroom, not only does it help them learn, but it also builds a really wonderful class culture. I wish that I could show you guys my classroom from last year where we did personalized learning all year, and the culture that we had and the relationships I had with those kids. You don't get that every time. It's not something that everybody gets to, I think, experience. And I wish that you guys could see it. It was incredible. And then, bringing the interests and needs, and then giving kids the choice in learning tasks, projects, and assessments. So an idea of what I mean by that, not every student can do a multiple choice test. I actually was the student that did really poorly on multiple choice tests. And I know that teachers, I think it makes our lives easier to give them multiple choice tests because it's just A, B, C, D. You mark it right or wrong. However, it doesn't always do justice to the student. When I was in high school, all of my teachers gave me multiple choice tests and just couldn't understand because they knew I knew the material, but I couldn't take the test. And I had one teacher, it was a language arts teacher, who started giving me an essay test instead and saying, write an essay. And I started writing these essays. And she would go through, and she was an English teacher, so she'd go through and grade it for, grammar and spelling. But she started to realize that I could show my knowledge differently. And that's what personalized learning is about, is not all of us learn, not all of us show the same way. So how can we tailor that to what the kids need? And then this last thing I put on the slide is that learning is ubiquitous. So students can learn anywhere at any time, pretty much at anything. And we have to take that into consideration. Like when they leave us at the end of the school day, they're still going home and learning because it can happen anywhere at any time. And keeping that really open mind about it will just create so many more opportunities for the students. So a couple of examples, and then I'm going to end this video so you can go explore. Examples of how you can start now is looking into things like project-based learning, design learning, deeper learning, culture-based education, inquiry learning, and service learning. My favorite of those is service learning. I think the kids really get a kick out of doing service for their communities and still learning at the same time. So that one's one of my favorites. But these are just a couple of things that you can really do to start engaging and getting your kids used to personalized learning, because it is a learning curve for both adults and for kids on how to do this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop. I want you guys to go and kind of explore the slides a little bit. After you guys are done with this video, the next slide down is actually going to be a Flipgrid activity where you get to share your story. So you guys all had to listen to my story on how I became a teacher. Now I want you guys to share how you became a teacher. So when you go to the next slide, there's a Flipgrid. You can either scan the QR code or type in the link. And it's just a way for you guys to record a video and you can watch other people's videos that are on there about how you became a teacher. So you can tell us your pathway and how you got to where you are. So have fun with the materials that I gave you. And if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My contact information is in the slide deck for you guys to ask questions. And yeah, I hope you enjoy. Thank you.